Lisa Morton here, and I am currently in the middle of writing a piece for college that's based around violence in games, and I thought that I should express my personal views as well as keeping information that I found on the internet. So let's start off with a basic sort of thing. There's always going to be this debate about banning games and taking games out of certain countries because they're too violent. Now, as you all know, that people don't really enforce the age laws really when buying games, and it's down to their parents that buy the games for them. So if I don't get how people want to ban games from coming into the country or letting that sort of thing, if they are getting them bought for them, or I mean, the whole point of banning games is really to stop our children from seeing the violence and seeing how much it can affect our children. But studies apparently on the internet say that it doesn't really enforce the violence at all, and the only reason that they would get if they were playing violent games is because their parents are buying those games for them. So parents should not have the vote, but should not complain about something that they can prevent. So let's talk about how genres and gameplay and cutscenes, the difference between them can be different in a way. So let's talk about the genres first. There's many genres out there, subgenres, and depending on what kind of genre you pick, you are expected to think of how much violence will be in that game. For instance, if you pick a fantasy kids game, you're not going to expect a lot of violence, like a Disney game. If you pick that, then you're not going to expect a lot of violence. But if you pick something that's like a first-person shooter, obviously, you're going to expect violence because let's think about it. A first-person shooter, you're going to be shooting people, so you're going to expect a lot of violence. So with certain genres, there does come a point where genre affects the amount of violence in games. For another instance is they are just the complete extremes, one with no violence, one with a lot of violence. There are games in between that you wouldn't expect violence, but there is violence. I'm trying to think of a good example. Games that have more of a story, and it's not got anything to do. It's more to do with the cutscenes than the actual gameplay. And yeah, I think that's where you wouldn't expect violence, but there is violence in it. And the only way we can tell these is by having the symbols on the game boxes. So I'm not got any game boxes down here, but usually you find them on the back, and they'll tell you if it contains mature themes and violence and stuff. So that's my view on themes and genres and the effects of violence.